I want you to listen, not with the ears of the outer world, but with the deep inner ear of imagination. For what I am about to share is not the story of money, but the story of consciousness becoming wealth. When I say, I made $800 million from only $7, I am not speaking of a miracle of the market, nor of luck, nor of any physical plan. I am speaking of the immutable law of imagining, the same law that has shaped every destiny, raised every empire, and carried every man from limitation into expansion. For it is not the $7 that matter, it is the state in which those $7 are held. $7 in the hands of one who believes in lack is simply a reminder of insufficiency, but $7 in the hands of one who knows the power within is the seed of an infinite harvest. You do not grow wealthy by counting what is in your hand. You grow wealthy by counting what is in your consciousness. I had $7, and the world would say, that is all you have. But imagination said, that is the beginning of all that you desire. And so I turned not to the world for validation, not to the outer world for evidence, but inward, where the true source of every manifestation resides. Everything you see, every building, every business, every fortune, began as nothing more than a feeling embraced and sustained. There was a time when I too looked at the smallness of my outer possession and felt the sting of limitation. There was a time when $7 felt like a verdict. But the moment I learned the truth, that consciousness creates reality, those same $7 became a symbol, not of what I lacked, but of what I could imagine. I made $800 million from $7 because I no longer identified with the man who had $7. I identified with the man who already had 800 million. I assumed the feeling of wealth before the evidence appeared. I walked in imagination, where I could not yet walk in flesh. I spent money in imagination I did not yet have in the world. I slept in houses the physical world had not yet built for me. I attended meetings, signed contracts, and lived the life of one who possessed far more than the world believed possible for a man with $7. This is the great secret of creation. You must become in consciousness what you desire to be before you see its reflection in the world. Most people try to change the world while remaining the same within. They pray for abundance while living as the poor. They hope for success while feeling themselves small. They wish for love while believing themselves unlovable. But the law is absolutely clear. You cannot attract what you are not conscious of being. And so I changed the only thing I truly could, my inner state. I declared, silently and with certainty, I am wealthy. Not I will be, not I hope to be, not one day. No. The great name of God, the creative name, is I am. And whatever you attach to I am becomes the flesh of your future. When I attached wealthy to I am, I altered the currents of my destiny. The outer world did not change immediately, for the outer world is slow, dense, and obedient. But within, everything shifted at once. I walked with a new posture, spoke with a new tone, made decisions as a man of means, and imagined only the outcomes that matched my new identity. It is identity, not effort, that creates wealth. Effort is the labor of the man who still lives in doubt. Identity is the effortless expression of the man who knows who he is. When I had $7, I stopped identifying as the man who had $7. That moment was the true turning point. The money did not make me wealthy. My consciousness of wealth created the money. I recall walking down the street with only those $7 in my pocket and yet feeling richer than anyone around me. I felt the weight of abundance even though my pockets were nearly empty. I felt the joy of financial freedom even though the world saw me as broke. But the world always sees too late. It sees only the effect, never the cause. The cause is always invisible. The cause is always imagination. And so I lived inwardly in the state of wealth. I felt it real, intensely real, until it became more natural than the appearance of lack. Day after day, I returned to this inner wealth, just as a farmer returns to water the seeds he has planted. I persisted. Persistence is the golden key. Anyone can imagine wealth for a moment. Most do it only when they are desperate. But few persist in the feeling of wealth when the evidence still says otherwise. Few can ignore the senses, the bank statements, the voices of doubt from those around them. But I tell you, if you can be faithful to your inner vision, your outer world must conform. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of law. Soon, ideas began to come. Ideas so natural, so perfectly aligned with my imagined state that I knew they were not random. They were the bridge of incidents the law always creates. I did not force these ideas, they came naturally, as the next logical step for a man who is wealthy in consciousness. I acted on them with confidence, not because I trusted the ideas, but because I trusted the state from which they came. And slowly, the $7 transformed, not literally, but through avenues, opportunities, interactions, conversations, and alignments that would have been invisible to me had I remained the man of $7. Wealth came not as a surprise, but as an inevitability. I had already lived it so vividly within that its arrival in physical form felt like a delayed confirmation of something long known. At first it was small, unexpected income, opportunities, doors opening, but it grew, as everything imagined consistently must. The millions did not come all at once, they came step by step, as the world reorganized itself to match the new identity I had assumed. You see, the world does not create your identity creates your world. And so the man who once held only $7 became the man who commanded millions, not because of the dollars, but because of the consciousness he chose to embody. When the first 100,000 came, I felt calm. When the first million came, I felt no shock. When the first 100 million came, I felt gratitude, yes, but not disbelief. Why? Because consciousness had long accepted the truth of it. I was merely seeing the physical shadow of a spiritual reality already established. And when the full 800 million manifested, I felt nothing but the quiet satisfaction of watching a seed become a harvest. $7 had been the seed. Imagination had been the soil. Persistence was the sunlight. Faith was the water. And the harvest was inevitable. People ask, how did you do it? What business? What strategy? And I tell them the truth. The business was the bridge, not the cause. The strategy was the expression, not the source. The real cause was internal. The real cause was consciousness. The real cause was the acceptance of the identity I am wealthy. The outer world simply obeyed. I share this not to dazzle you with the number. 800 million means nothing in the eyes of the infinite, but to show you what $7 can become when imagination is master. You may have $7, or 70, or 7,000. It does not matter. What matters is who you are in consciousness. You can make your $7 a reminder of what you lack, or a reminder of what you are destined to express. $7 can be the evidence of poverty, or the seed of your fortune. You decide. If you identify with lack, the $7 will never grow. If you identify with wealth, the $7 will multiply without effort. Not because money has power. Money is a shadow. But because consciousness has power, and consciousness is the source of everything you call real. I am telling you now with absolute certainty that you can create any level of wealth, success, or abundance if you will assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in it, regardless of appearances. Do not wait for the world to give you permission. Do not wait for the bank account to confirm your identity. Do not wait for the job, the investment, the sale, the chance. If you wait for the world, you will wait forever. The world follows you. You do not follow it. You are the operant power. You are the creative force. The moment you say, I am wealthy, and truly feel it, you set creation in motion. Every event, every encounter, every opportunity that follows will rise to meet the frequency you have chosen. And if you remain faithful, the harvest must appear. For imagination, sustained, always becomes fact. I made $800 million from $7 because I understood the law. I honored the law. I lived the law. Now I give it to you. Do not cherish the $7. Cherish the consciousness that will multiply it. Do not cling to the physical. Cling to the invisible truth of who you choose to be. Say it with me now, not as a repetition, but as an inner acceptance. I am wealthy. Feel it. Let it fill you. Let it take root. Let it become your identity. Or identity is destiny. And when the world asks how you did it, how you rose from little to abundance, you will smile, as I do now, knowing that the $7 were never the start. The true beginning was the moment you declared I am, and attached to it the wealth you desired. Hold that truth, live in imagination, persist in the feeling, and watch your $7 become your empire. And as I continued walking in the state of wealth, something extraordinary began to take shape within me, something far greater than money, greater than any outward symbol of success. I began to realize that the true treasure was not the wealth itself, but the awareness of my creative power. For once a man knows he is the operant power, he can never again fear lack. Once he knows imagination shapes reality, he can never again bow to circumstances. I remember sitting one evening with those same $7 still in my pocket, yet feeling within me a sense of richness so immense that it seemed impossible to measure. I felt as though rivers of abundance were flowing through my very being. I felt as though every desire I could conceive was not something I had to chase, but something already granted in a higher dimension. This feeling was not a fantasy, it was a knowing. And I tell you now, the moment you truly know, the outer world must rearrange itself to reflect that knowing. Days passed, and I lived more in imagination than in the physical world, not as an escape, but as the true home of creation. Whenever doubt whispered, I returned to the feeling of wealth. Whenever the world suggested limitation, I closed my eyes and moved inward to the truth of my being. I would walk into stores and imagine buying whatever I pleased without looking at the price. I would see myself writing large checks with ease and joy. I would imagine being called a man of extraordinary success, a man whose accomplishments inspired millions. And although none of these things were yet visible to others, I lived them internally so consistently that they became more real to me than the physical world. In the silence of imagination, I held conversations with people who praised my achievements, people congratulating me on building an empire, people asking for advice. These were not mere fantasies, they were rehearsals of the future. I felt the warmth of their admiration, the firmness of their handshakes, the sound of their voices speaking of my success, and because I felt it, the universe had no choice but to externalize it. For the law is absolute. What you feel deeply and consistently will harden into fact. But understand this, the law does not respond to the fleeting thoughts of a restless mind. It responds to the steady feeling you accept as true. Many will hear these words and think imagination is a game. Many will try it once, feel nothing, see nothing, and declare the law ineffective. But those who persist, those who return again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled, will discover that imagination is the one power that never fails. The days of small beginnings soon gave way to days of expansion. Opportunities arrived like stepping stones placed before my feet. I did not seek them, they appeared. People entered my life precisely when needed, not one moment early, not one moment too late. A conversation overheard, a chance meeting in a cafe, an email from someone I had never met. All of these were part of the bridge of incidents leading me toward the $800 million I had accepted inwardly long before. It is important to understand, I did not chase wealth, I aligned myself with it. I did not hustle or struggle or force anything. I simply remained faithful to the inner feeling of being wealthy, and the world responded by delivering everything that matched that feeling. That is the mystery and the beauty of the law. It does not require strain, it requires conviction. There were moments when the old state tried to pull me back, moments when the $7 seemed loud, when the world's voice whispered, "Be realistic." But I learned to silence that voice by replacing it with the inner declaration, "I am wealthy," not as an affirmation, not as positive thinking, but as a statement of identity. For identity is the only thing the universe obeys. One night, as I lay in bed, I entered the state so deeply that I felt as though I were floating in a sea of pure abundance. I imagined seeing my bank accounts with the vast numbers displayed on screen. I imagined signing contracts worth hundreds of millions. I imagined holding documents that bore my name next to figures that once seemed impossible. And as I intensified the feeling, as I allowed myself to bask in the sensation of wealth, I felt it become natural. That is when I knew I had crossed the threshold. For once a desire feels natural, creation is complete. What follows is merely the unfolding. The first major breakthrough came through an opportunity that to the old version of me would have seemed too grand to believe, but to the man I had become in imagination, it felt perfectly natural. I recognized it instantly as part of the bridge, and I moved boldly, confidently, without hesitation. The doors swung open, partnerships formed, resources appeared. Everything unfolded with such precision that even those observing from the outside were astonished. But I was not astonished. I had lived the success inwardly for so long that the physical manifestation felt expected. As the numbers began to grow, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, I refused to be surprised. I refused to react as a man who had never known wealth. I reacted as the man who had already lived a life of abundance in imagination. This is crucial. Many sabotage their manifestations by treating them as extraordinary or unbelievable. But when you react with awe or disbelief, you reveal that you had not truly accepted the state inwardly. The wealthy man sees wealth as normal. The successful man sees success as natural. And so I mastered the art of normalizing abundance long before abundance arrived. The momentum grew, investments flourished, partnerships expanded, ventures multiplied. At every stage, I returned inward to the root, the feeling of wealth, the identity of abundance, the consciousness of the wealthy man. I did not drift into the old state. I remained anchored in the new state, and the outer world obeyed relentlessly. It is no exaggeration to say that everything I touched prospered, not because of skill, not because of luck, but because my consciousness had shifted. And when consciousness shifts, the entire world moves with it. I began to understand why Neville said, "Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment." That is exactly what happened. The world played its part. Every person, every circumstance, every opportunity became an actor fulfilling the script written by my imagination. When the first 100 million became visible, I felt no shock, no disbelief, only quiet acknowledgement. It was the harvest of seeds planted long ago in imagination, and I knew more was unfolding. The expansion continued. New avenues opened, new doors appeared, and each door led to another expression of the wealth I had assumed inwardly with unwavering faith. The 800 million did not come as a sudden stroke of luck. It came as a natural climax of the state I had been embodying day after day, night after night. It came because the universe cannot deny the man who knows who he is, and the man I had become in consciousness was one who commanded wealth on a scale that others considered impossible. But understand this, the 800 million was never the victory. The true victory was mastery of the law. For once a man masters the law, he can build, rebuild, transform, and rise again no matter the circumstances. Money can come and go, but consciousness, once expanded, cannot shrink back to its former limits. That is the real treasure. Even now, I remain far more impressed by the $7 than by the 800 million. The $7 were the symbol of the old me, the man who lived by appearances. They reminded me of the version of myself that believed in limitation. The 800 million, however, was merely the shadow cast by the new me, the man who believed in the infinite creative power of imagination. I share this with you so you may understand that your current circumstances, no matter how small, no matter how limited, hold no power except the power you give them. The $7 you may have today can become your empire tomorrow, but only if you transform the consciousness that holds them. Do not think for a moment that your desire is beyond reach. If it exists in your imagination, it is already yours in a higher dimension. Your only task is to accept it as true, feel it natural, and persist in that feeling until the physical world catches up. And it will catch up. It must. It has no choice. The law is unfailing. Even now, as you listen, you can shift your identity. You can choose to stop identifying as the man or woman of limitation. You can choose to adopt a consciousness of wealth. Feel it. Allow the sensation of abundance to rise within you. Allow it to take form. Allow it to become your inner truth. And once you accept it, the outer world will begin its work. And so I stand before you now, not as the man who once held $7, but as the embodiment of a truth that belongs to all humanity. You are infinitely greater than your circumstances. You are not defined by the money in your pocket, the conditions around you, or the opinions others have formed about you. You are defined only by the state you choose to occupy. I made 800 million from $7 not because I was lucky, not because the world favored me, but because I dared to believe in the reality of my imagination more than the reality of my senses. I chose the inner world over the outer, and the outer world bowed in obedience. This same law stands ready to serve you the moment you choose to awaken. The message I give you now is simple, yet it is the foundation of all creation. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it becomes your nature. Do not wait for signs. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for circumstances to change. Begin now within by changing your concept of yourself. Walk as the man or woman you desire to be. Feel the wealth, the success, the freedom, the power, even before one thing changes outside. And if you remain loyal to that inner state, the world will reshape itself to reflect it with mathematical precision. Let my story be your reminder that nothing is too small to start with, and nothing is too large to claim. $7 can become 800 million when held by a mind that knows its own creative authority. Your dreams, no matter how distant they may appear, are already waiting for you in imagination. All you must do is step into the version of yourself who possesses them. Live in that identity. Think from it, feel from it, act from it, and the results will astonish everyone but you, for you will have known the end from the beginning. So I leave you with this truth, the truth that changed my life forever. Your imagination is the only reality. Dare to trust it, dare to believe in it, dare to persist in it even when nothing around you reflects it yet. If you do, your $7, whatever form they take in your life today, will become the empire you once thought impossible. For as long as you can say I am, you hold the power of creation in your hands. Use it boldly, use it intentionally, use it now,